In 1846, a dentist named William Morton held a rag soaked in ether over a patient's face at Massachusetts General Hospital. A surgeon cut into the man's jaw, removed a tumor. The patient woke up and said he felt nothing. The surgeon turned to the room full of medical students and said, "Gentlemen, this is no humbug." That was 1846. For the previous 5,000 years, the answer to "Will this hurt?" was yes. You have a toothache. It's the 13th century. You are in agony. There are no dentists. The people who should be helping you, the physicians, the educated men, the ones who read Galen in Latin, they think surgery is beneath them, literally beneath them. They're scholars of theory. Touching a patient with their hands? That's peasant work. So the job of ripping teeth out of your skull falls to the only people in town with sharp instruments and steady hands. Barbers. Your barber, the man who cuts your hair. He's also going to bleed you, lance your boils, amputate your fingers, and, if you're lucky, yank out the thing that's been keeping you awake for 6 nights straight. And if you can't afford the barber, you go to the blacksmith, because he already owns pliers. But the full medieval dental experience happens on the street. Itinerant tooth drawers set up stalls at marketplaces and fairs. They attract crowds with music. They tell tall tales. They wear necklaces made of human teeth they've already pulled. Sometimes they display alligator parts on their tables. Nobody has explained why. A crowd gathers. Someone sits in a chair. The tooth drawer reaches in. There is no anesthetic. There is an audience. Let's talk about the instruments, because they're worse than you think. Guy de Chauliac was a 14th century French surgeon who once wrote that a surgeon ignorant of anatomy operates like a blind man on wood. Inspirational guy. He's the first person to describe a tool called the Pelican, named after the bird, which he used to lever teeth out of people's skulls. It had a claw that hooked over the tooth and a bolster that pressed against the gum. You pushed down on one end and the tooth popped out. In theory. In practice, it routinely ripped out the neighboring teeth as well. Shattered jawbones, tore through gums. It was the standard tool for 400 years. Then, around 1730, someone decided to improve things. They invented the dental key. Looked like a door key. You clamped the claw around the tooth, then rotated the handle, like you were unlocking a door. Except the door was your face. The lock was your molar, and the key was being operated by a man who'd been a wig maker 6 months ago. The dental key was described by its own users as barbarous. It fractured teeth. It cracked jawbones. It was considered an upgrade. So what did they do about the pain? A few things. None of them great. Option 1. Alcohol. A lot of it. Drink until you can't feel your legs, and hope the numbness reaches your mouth. Option 2. Opium. Mixed with mandrake and hemlock, soaked into a sponge, held under your nose. This was the Spongia somnifera. It might knock you out. It might also kill you. The dosage was, to use a technical term, vibes-based. Option 3. Clove oil. This actually works as a mild analgesic. This was the one genuinely useful idea they had. They absolutely did not use it enough. Option 4. Prayer. Specifically, to Saint Apollonia. She was a 3rd century deaconess in Alexandria, whose persecutors shattered every tooth in her head before threatening to burn her alive. She jumped into the fire herself. The church made her the patron saint of toothaches. In paintings, she's holding a pair of pincers with a tooth in them, like a trophy. So you'd pray to the woman whose teeth were smashed out of her skull, and then a man would try to smash the teeth out of yours. Option 5, and this one's real, hitting the patient. A sharp blow to the jaw. Stun them, then pull. But before anyone reached for the pliers, people had to figure out why their teeth hurt. And their answer, for 5,000 years, was, Worms. Tiny creatures living inside your teeth, gnawing through the enamel. The idea shows up in Sumerian texts from 5000 BC, ancient China, Egypt, India, Babylon. Everyone agreed. Something was eating you from the inside. And here's the thing, it almost made sense. Crack open a rotting tooth, and the nerves look like tiny white threads. They look like worms. A medieval dentist could pull one out and hold it up for the crowd. See? Worms. The patient would nod. Everyone would nod. The science was settled. The treatment was fumigation. Burn henbane seeds near the patient's mouth. The smoke kills the worms. And the seeds, when they pop in the heat, leave behind little curled-up husks that look exactly like dead worms. So the patient sees worm-shaped things falling from their mouth. The pain fades, because henbane is a mild narcotic. The practitioner sees dead worms. Cause and effect. Proof. This belief survived for 5 millennia. Pierre Fauchard finally killed it in 1728. 5,000 years. So imagine you're a 12th century peasant and you want to keep your teeth. Here's your morning routine. You take a twig, hazel maybe, and you fray the end until it's bristly. That's your toothbrush. You dip it into a powder made from ground animal bones, crushed oyster shells, and brick dust. You scrub. It cleans your teeth the way sandpaper cleans a table, aggressively, and with permanent consequences to the surface. If you're Roman, or if Roman ideas haven't died in your region yet, you gargle urine. Human urine. Because ammonia whitens teeth. It works. It genuinely works. And they knew it worked. And they did it anyway. If nothing helped, you pressed a written prayer to Saint Apollonia against your jaw and waited. But here's the twist nobody expects. The peasants' teeth were actually fine. Better than fine. Medieval commoners ate high-fiber, unrefined, nearly sugar-free diets. Their teeth wore down from grit in their bread, but they didn't rot. The real dental apocalypse needed an ingredient that hadn't arrived yet. Sugar came back from the Crusades. Soldiers called it sweet salt. For centuries, it stayed rare, a spice for the very rich, measured in teaspoons, locked in cabinets. And the very rich started rotting. By the time Elizabeth I sat on the throne, sugar consumption among the nobility had become so extreme that blackened, decayed teeth were a visible marker of wealth. Your teeth were ruined because you could afford to ruin them. Elizabeth loved sugar, candied violets, marzipan. She cleaned her teeth with a paste made of sugar and honey, which is like putting out a fire with gasoline. By the end of her reign, her teeth were black stubs. Foreign visitors wrote about her mouth. A German traveler named Paul Hensner described them in detail. Her speech became difficult to understand, and she was terrified of the barber surgeon. So she made a bishop do it first. The Bishop of London, John Aylmer, an elderly man. She made him sit down and have a tooth pulled out of his head, right in front of her, to prove the procedure was survivable. He did it. She still didn't want to go. Next time you walk past a barber shop, look at the pole. Red and white stripes, spinning in a glass case. It looks cheerful, decorative, harmless. The red is blood. The white is bandages. The pole itself, the rod at the center, that's the stick patients used to grip during bloodletting, squeezing until their veins bulged so the barber could find them and cut. After the procedure, the barber would wash the bloody bandages and hang them outside to dry. They'd twist in the wind around the pole, red and white, spiraling. That image became the sign of the trade. Eventually, someone painted it on and made it permanent. Every barbershop in the world is advertising a service they haven't offered in 300 years. This is because barbers and surgeons used to be the same people. In 1540, Henry VIII merged them officially. One guild, the Company of Barbers and Surgeons. Hans Holbein painted the charter ceremony. The deal was simple. Surgeons couldn't cut hair. Barbers couldn't perform surgery. But both could still pull teeth. Teeth were the shared territory. the DMZ. The company also got 4 executed criminals a year to dissect. So that was your guild. Share a hall with the guy who does haircuts, cut up 4 corpses annually, and fight over who gets to hold the pliers. The surgeons spent 200 years trying to leave. In 1745, they finally split, became the Company of Surgeons. Eventually, the Royal College of Surgeons of England. The Barbers kept the hall, kept the silver, kept the Holbein. After Waterloo in 1815, tens of thousands of soldiers lay dead on the field. Scavengers moved through the bodies. But they weren't looking for gold or weapons. They were looking for teeth. Young, healthy teeth, pulled from the jaws of dead 19-year-olds, cleaned, sorted into sets, packed in barrels, shipped to dentists in London and Paris. They called them Waterloo teeth. They were the gold standard for dentures, better than ivory, which yellowed and decayed, better than animal bone, which never quite fit right. These were human teeth, from men who'd been alive that morning, wired into the mouths of wealthy 50-year-olds who wanted to smile at dinner. The supply didn't stop at Waterloo, the Crimean War, the American Civil War. Every battlefield became a dental supply warehouse. The term Waterloo teeth stopped meaning teeth from Waterloo. It became a brand, a marketing term, applied to any human tooth yanked from any dead body, whether that body fell in Belgium or was dug up from a graveyard in Cheapside. You could buy a dead man's smile. Before 1728, if you wanted to learn dentistry, you found a man who pulled teeth and you watched him do it. Maybe he showed you his technique. Maybe he didn't. Most of them kept their methods secret. Trade secrets, competitive advantages. You learned by watching, by failing, by breaking someone's jaw and figuring out what you did wrong. Then Pierre Fauchard sat down and wrote everything he knew. 800 pages, 42 illustrated plates. Every instrument, every technique, every observation, laid out for anyone who could read. He described how to fill cavities, how to straighten teeth with metal braces, how sugar destroyed enamel, how the toothworm was a fairy tale. The book was called Le Chirurgien Dentiste, the surgeon dentist. And the most radical thing about it wasn't any single discovery. It was the act of sharing. In a world where knowledge was power and secrecy was profit, Fauchard published everything. He turned teeth from a street performance into a medical discipline. But even Fauchard couldn't solve the one problem that mattered most: the pain. For another 118 years after his book, every extraction, every procedure happened with the patient awake, aware, feeling everything. Until October 16, 1846, a room in Boston, a rag over a face, a tumor removed, and no pain. The surgeon turns to the room. "Gentlemen, this is no humbug. Next time you're in the chair, the modern one, the one that reclines, the hygienist is going to ask if you want mint or bubblegum fluoride. You'll pick one. They'll numb you with a needle so thin you barely feel it. You won't feel a thing. And somewhere between you and the peasant gripping a stick in a 13th-century marketplace, 5,000 years of people sat down, opened their mouths, and just endured it. That's the whole history of dentistry. The slow, brutal answer to one question: does this have to hurt? It took us 5,000 years to say no.